Let's talk about something that happens all the time in the world of data. It changes. A customer moves, they get a promotion, maybe they just change their name. Now, in data analysis, if you just ignore these little changes, you're actually missing a huge, huge part of the story. So today, we're going to dive into the techniques that data professionals use to keep that story perfectly intact. Think about it. When a customer's job title changes from, say, management to senior management, should you just update the record and pretend they were never in that first role? Or is there real value in remembering that history? Well, that is the core problem that we are going to solve today. The challenge really comes from a fundamental difference in how we use data. On one hand, you have your everyday operational systems, your sales app, your CRM. They only care about what's true right now. But a data warehouse, that's a different beast entirely. Its whole job is to analyze trends over time, to see the whole story. And for that, just overwriting old information, it's just not going to cut it. So, how do we bridge this gap? Well, we do it by mastering the art of keeping history. And we use a special toolkit for that called slowly changing dimensions, or SCDs for short. These are the go-to techniques that data warehouse designers use to manage and preserve every single state of their data over time. A slowly changing dimension is honestly exactly what it sounds like. It's a way to handle data in our descriptive tables, things like customer details, that changes, but it changes slowly and unpredictably. To really see how this works in practice, we're going to follow the journey of one single customer record. Let's call him Alex. Okay, here is Alex's initial record in our customer table. He's got his unique customer code, his designation is management, but notice his annual income is null. That just means the system doesn't have that information yet. This is our starting point, ground zero. All right, let's start with the most basic tools in the SCD toolkit. These are really the simplest ways to handle data changes, and they're known as type 0 and type 1. First up, we've got type 0, which is the easiest of all of them. You just do nothing. Seriously, some data points are meant to be permanent. Think about a customer's joined date. That fact should never, ever change. So for these kinds of attributes, we just tell the system to ignore any updates. We're preserving that original historical truth. Next is type 1, and this one is super common. When a value changes, you just overwrite the old one with the new one. It's clean, it's simple, but it means the past is gone for good. Let's see what this looks like with our friend Alex's record. And here we go, our first change event. The system has just gotten an update. We finally know Alex's annual income. Using a type 1 approach, the change is incredibly straightforward. The null value that was in the annual income column is simply replaced with $120,000. Now, this is perfect for correcting errors or filling in missing data where the history just doesn't matter. But what happens when the change itself tells an important story? Well, that brings us to the real powerhouse of historical data tracking, SCD Type 2. People often call this the gold standard in data warehousing, and for good reason. It keeps a complete, unabridged historical record. The key idea behind Type 2 is that we never overwrite data. Instead, when an attribute changes, we treat it like a whole new version of that record. A completely new row is added with the updated information, while the old row is just marked as no longer current. What you get is a perfect, versioned history. And here is the perfect event to show this off. Alex has been promoted. His designation is changing from management to senior management. Now, this is a really significant change, and for our analysis, we absolutely want to remember both of those states. And this is how Type 2 captures that change. Look at this. We now have two rows for Alex. His original record gets an end date, and its isCurrent flag is flipped to no. Then a brand new row is created. It even gets a new unique customer key just for the data warehouse, and it has his new senior management title, a start date, and its isCurrent flag is set to yes. We now have a perfect timeline of his career progression. And this is why preserving that history is so incredibly powerful. It lets us do much, much deeper analysis. We can now ask questions like, how did the sales related to Alex's accounts change after he got that promotion? We can accurately link every historical sale to the correct version of his record. That's an insight that is completely lost if we had just used a simple Type 1 overwrite. So while Type 2 is the most common workhorse, data professionals have a few more specialized tools for very specific situations. So next up, let's take a quick look at SCD types 3, 4, and 6.
All right, here's a real fast overview. Type 3 just adds a new column for limited history, like previous designation, so you can easily see one step back. Type 4 is for handling really rapidly changing data. By moving it to its own separate mini dimension table, that keeps the main table nice and clean. And then there's Type 6, which is this really powerful hybrid, combining the full history of Type 2 with the immediate comparison of Type 3.
Let's see that Type 6 hybrid in action, because it's pretty clever. So Alex's current record, it shows his senior management title, but it also includes a new column for his previous designation. This gives us the best of both worlds. You get the complete versioned history that comes with Type 2, but with that key comparison data right there at your fingertips. The real benefit here is all about simplicity. By combining these approaches, Type 6 lets analysts compare the current state versus a past state with much simpler queries. It's all about making complex historical analysis more accessible to everyone. Ultimately, this is a toolkit for telling your data's story. And choosing the right SCD type, it's not just some technical detail. It's a strategic decision about which parts of your history are actually important enough to save and to analyze. So here's a little cheat sheet to wrap things up. Type 1 overwrites, no history. Use that for corrections. Type 2 adds a new row, full history. This should be your go-to standard for any important analytical attributes. Then you have Type 3, which adds a column for some limited history, and Type 6, which combines the power of row versioning and extra columns for the ultimate analytical flexibility. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a world where data is being generated and changed at an absolutely incredible speed, the decisions that we make about which histories to preserve, they become even more critical. It's not just about storage anymore, it's about deciding which stories from our past are going to have the most value for our future.